Heading to the live line to talk to Curtis Hauk, managing editor at Newsbusters. I had one digit off on your phone number, Curtis. I was freaking out. I had to go look up the email from your publicist because I put the numbers in the wrong position. Sorry.
It happens. It happens, my friend. I mean, and it's also Friday, too, so you also have that going for you.
Well, and lack of sleep for 2 days with a puppy that has an issue right now. So it's like having a newborn baby. All right, so apparently Donald Trump's in charge of the weather now, just because there were some cuts for the National Weather Service. The first time a weather disaster happens, it was his fault.
Yes, so the thing from the far left is always the Jews control the weather. I guess now it's Donald Trump controls the weather.
Yeah.
Is the new thing out there. I mean, this thing, we put up with a lot, and I said this to one of my friends in positions of power, a position of authority, the other day, and I was like, you guys put up with a lot of crap, but this one. It's just it's so much worse. Like this discourse has been so much worse because it involves little kids, loss of life, the circumstances in which it happened in the middle of the night. So a lot of this hubbub about the emergency alert system is not irrelevant, but not as much of a player as it normally would be, versus something that happens, dinner time, early, middle, evening. So that whole thing with Donald Trump, and it was just baseless speculation. CNN, ABC, over those initial few days, they would bring up these Doge cuts and National Weather Service and everything, but then they would say, oh, but, we don't know for sure. But, well, then why say it? Why state something as fact if you don't know it to be fact? Unless you have a partisan axe to grind.
It's not even gossip at this point. It's a false accusation. And it's an absolute abhorrent thing to say about another human being, whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. I didn't blame Joe Biden for hurricanes or when West Virginia was swept away or North Carolina had their massive flood. By the way, people are still living in temporary housing out there. I didn't blame Biden for that, but people want to blame Trump for everything. And they said, well, he made cuts at the National Weather Service. I said, so that made it flood? That made people die? I mean, come on. It's a stretch. I think we lost Curtis. Hopefully he's still there. Cell phone service is the worst thing.
Because of the study weather over a long period of time. But, they're taking singular weather events and saying, oh, this is because of climate change. You do realize that you have a problem here. You're trying to say that long periods of time things are changing, but then you're saying an individual event is singularly caused by climate change. They are losing people, and I don't think they care at this point.
Yeah, they don't. Anything that they can, they will blame. And a lot of them, say, well, they did cuts to the education system, the National Education Association. Education's going to fall apart in this country. And so if somebody gets an F on a test, it's going to be Trump's fault.
Yeah, have test scores improved since we created the Department of Education?
Nope.
Yeah.
Slip sliding away, baby.
We're just letting it rip.
Yep.
It's just money for the teachers' unions and everything else. Meanwhile, on these storms, we looked at PBS or we looked at NPR's coverage in the middle of this because they have, over a dozen different NPR affiliates, and we found that Texas Public Radio didn't break in with coverage. But you know what they were doing when people were dealing with floods? Asking, listeners on social media to call their members of Congress and say, please help us.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Talk about news you can use.
Well, and Stephanopoulos, I think, bothers me the most. Nobody watches CNN, so who cares? But it's like people do watch ABC. They do. And he peddled claims that staffing shortfalls and ignoring the Associated Press report confirming extra staff were on duty during the storms, all those sorts of things. You know, he was lying. It was a lie. And I realize he doesn't write his own material. Somebody else writes it and he just reads it off a prompter. I get it.
Yeah.
But he still said it. And it's like, dude, you cannot blame the death of these beautiful little Christian children on the president because there was a flood. Because you know what took them? The flood.
Yeah, the correspondent there didn't push back on this at all. Maria Villarreal, she kind of just was there in Texas, like, oh, yeah, nodding along. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what good are you at this point?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, too, as well, the media so often, when they want to pick heroes and villains, they want things to fit in a nice, neat box.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular situation, the circumstances in which the floods came in the middle of the night in areas where cell reception is not always great, at summer camps where the entire point, well, part of the point of going to summer camp is not being around technology,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a series of factors that rolled up together made for a deadly mess.
Well, and if they hadn't
instead
had
of
the
circumstances.
wildfires, Curtis, the wildfires, because they refused to clean up the underbrush because a toad
Well,
might
yeah.
lose its habitat. You know, they had all these wildfires, which makes it extremely likely that flash flooding will occur.
Yeah, I mean, California. I mean, that is just
That's one example.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
Government incompetence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe Jasmine Crockett can fix it all. Maybe we should have her go fix it all. I just get so upset at the derangement in the way that everything is Trump's fault, but nothing was Biden's fault. Nothing was Obama's fault. But every time something happens and there's a Republican on office, it's their fault. What I do blame on Trump is the fact that when he and Melania went down there, everyone took their hats off, greeted the First Lady. Trump was there to thank them for what they were doing. It was a beautiful display of empathy, sympathy, and condolences and concern. And we don't see the other guy doing that. He never did that.
Yeah, I mean, the guy the media ran around saying was the consoler in chief.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he'd tell the same stories over and over and over again. It didn't really feel sympathetic at all to me.
Yeah,
but
Corn Pop was a bad dude. All right, so where do people go to learn more about Newsbusters and how you call the media out on their ridiculous slanting?
Yeah, newsbusters.org, newsbusters.org. We've got all kinds of stuff. We've got flooding coverage, PBS, NPR, and Stephen Colbert losing his job. Oh, no, so sad. We've got coverage on all those things.
Well, when no one watches it, you're losing money. Everybody's trying to say it's because he called out somebody. I'm like, no, he wasn't funny. Curtis, thank you for being on this morning. I appreciate you, man.
Always a pleasure.
Take care.